Yeah.
I think I came in early. Or came in here earlier.
Who's the late?
Without Scott like yelling things at me, then it's like way easier. Okay, we are live. Okay, I need to mute that. So we are live, everyone. We are. Okay, perfect. Okay. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Kennard. Nick, morning. Morning.
Milt, we are live, just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Leave the live, my hair's not. Okay.
We have 8:15. We'll call the Tuesday, February 14th, Land and Water meeting to order. We'll do roll call. We have a new member today. Kim is out today. She's excused. Derek is from FSA. Derek, do you just want to introduce yourself to the board and to the public?
Yeah, hi, I'm Derek Duquette from Southern Keeling County, partner at Deer Run Dairy, and then also Duquette Custom Work. So we do custom work for other farms.
Great, thank you, Derek. Need approval and repair of today's agenda.
So moved.
And Derek, you do have the ability to make motions and second, and just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Motion's been made by Tim. Second by Nick, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to approval and repair of last month's minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at them. Is there anything that anybody has seen that needs to be changed? If not, we'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Tim. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Nick. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the public comment period. We'll do 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Dick Swanson. I live in Algoma. I've come to a lot of these meetings and look forward to every one. Wish I could make more. Lots been happening in this county, and we're all aware of the Wacker situation. And we know that's a DOJ issue, and it's not a county issue. But I have gotten so many phone calls about what is happening. And of course, I can't answer that. I refer them all to the DOJ. And they want to call Land and Water and find out what's going on. And I've told the people that I've talked to that Land and Water does not know at this time. I hope that's right. So I'm dealing with that. Then of course we have the well reports, and it was kind of difficult for me to sit and look at what the numbers were with Casco by itself. And it ended up, if I did my math correct, and I think I did, we started with 317 wells for the county. Then there's another report that shows 244 wells without Casco. So therefore, Casco is the difference, approximately 73 wells. So 73 wells were tested in the township of Casco over this report. And there's a graph here that will show you if you go online. Basically, it breaks down like this. Normal natural levels in the town of Casco is 14% of the wells tested. 14% of the wells tested were normal. 52% of the wells tested in Casco had a reading of 2.1 to 9.9 nitrate level, which is a danger zone. Of course, when nitrates get over 10, it becomes a really big issue. Casco had 34% of their wells tested were over 10%. And then there's always the coliform bacteria test that we run. And Casco's numbers came in at 26% of the wells tested. Total unsafe wells in Casco, 49%. 49% of the wells tested in Casco are unsafe, according to this last report. Now that's just Casco. Imagine if we took the numbers and did the same for Lincoln, for Red River, and for Luxembourg. We have 4 townships.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have 4 townships. I'd like to see the numbers on those 4 townships. And the last thing is, of course, our manure hauling ordinance. We need to pass that.
Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
Sue Weiser from the town of West Kiwanee.
Morning.
Nobody likes to be ignored or dismissed. At your meetings, the public is made to feel invisible, non-existent. Yet this persists. Lack of common courtesy to respond to emails when requested. When I sent you some samples of agenda items, I never heard a word. Never. Never any response to the public comments presented at the Land and Water meetings. State Statute 92, under which the Land and Water Conservation Committees exist, is dumped into a manure pit. Here's a few other examples. This committee has shown no support for additional staff needed in the Land and Water Department, yet 2 members of this committee who sit on the executive committee recently voted in favor of filling at least 4 other vacancies in other departments. The committee is still using Plan B instead of the Manure Haulers Ordinance 38, 2017 has yet to be enacted, and there's a place reserved for it in our ordinance book. Okay, the committee is still using this, and for manure spreading figures, currently at only 70% participation as noted at the January Land and Water Committee meeting. How can one get a true representation of just what is going on to these fields, plus the fact that the figures may not be reliable at all when presented? We need to end self-reporting, self-regulation. Install flow meters that are tamper-proof on everything related to CAFO liquid manure spreading. Even the cows, who are already computerized to resemble machines. It appears that residents owning septic systems are more regulated than the CAFOs regarding county rules and regulations. They pay a yearly county fee and a 3-year inspection pump out ordered by the county. CAFOs have bigger pollution discharge elimination systems than septic systems and should pay appropriate fees to pay. Please remember, clean water should be available for everyone. I don't like crossing my fingers every time I turn on the faucet. This committee can do more. Silence has a repressive hold on this county. Stop sitting on your hands and work for the health, welfare, and safety of all Kewaunee County residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
Aaron, I am going to talk today. First, I want to thank the committee members that actually engage in eye contact with people that speak. I think it's really important. We can all have our own opinions or disagree, but eye contact and actually acknowledging that you're hearing somebody shows engagement, and maybe even the possibility that you care what that person's saying. So I noticed there's more of that today, and I really appreciate that just as a person. The other thing I wanted to talk about is there's some really good points made today about the idea of accountability. And I think with the kind of contamination that we're seeing throughout the county, you know, it's not radical to want accountability about these things in light of charges that have just been recently made that I'm not going to make any commentary on. Citizens seeking accountability for the industry that has set up shop in our neighborhoods is a realistic want. That's what we want. I'd like to see Chapter 38 open again, put on your agenda and discussed. And you know what? Send it out to all the towns as a referendum if nobody wants to put that on their mantle here or at the county level. Let the people decide. But it's time, you know, 2004 was when the Trumbull family was poisoned. Come on, it's time for some real accountability to be put forth. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Tucker Birch, his research and what he has to say and what happened in this county as far as what he found out, as far as human health that's affected by manure-borne illness. I would like to hear that. I would like it to be presented to people here, especially the elderly people that were affected, that were part of that research study. They can't travel long distances or go to other states or whatever to hear these things. We want to hear presented locally for the people to hear here. So Tucker Birch presentation, please bring it home. And Tim, I hope you bring that home to the head of the health department as well, because that was a request made to them too. Okay. The last thing, a couple people called me from the new I call it the new subdivision next to Village Kitchen. And they asked that I would ask this committee to consider having meetings when they can attend, because they want you all to know they work. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to the department reports. Turn it over to Dina.
So for animal waste storage permits, there was no new permits for December, but I'm giving you guys some statistics for the year. So we had 17 permits overall. So for $7,000 we brought in. There was I think there was 7 manure storage abandonments this year. So we're working really hard on getting the old pits abandoned. 17 permits, $7,000. NR 151, Travis is starting to schedule 2023 walkovers. I gave the full statistics in last month's meeting, but we did bring in $43,450 for walkover fees for 2023. That number is kind of like a little rolling average, because some years we do less walkovers but more acres. Some years we do more walkovers with less, you know, the acres kind of change but everyone gets walked over once every 4 years. There was a manure complaint come in. Manure was found on an intermittent stream just south of here. We're working with DNR. We got it all cleaned up. There was a pump malfunction, which caused manure to caused the pump not to shut off. So there was a lot of manure in a waterway that will be receiving a citation from our office as well. Travis held the nutrient management farmer education courses. It was 3 days over the beginning of February. We had 23 farms so far come in during those 3 days and write their own plans. So we bring in, I always forget her name, Jamie Patton from Door County, and UW-Madison now. Okay, she switches too much. And she helps, so her and Travis help 23 people write their plans. I think there's another like 6 or 7 on the docket that will come in and write their plan one-on-one with Travis. A lot of those people do not have any computer skills. So they like to sit there and reiterate what they're doing on their farm to Travis, who then plugs it in. So that has been a really great program that we've been doing here. 2 conservation plans for approval was Ron Alstein, which is a new one, and then Almond Hill added some new farm or new land. We get that when the new parcel layer comes out, who added, who bought farms, etc. We're currently in our no spreading of any waste on less than 20 feet to bedrock. We've had no complaints and we've had no violations. Chapter 39, so for 2022, we had 7 citations. 3 were for Shrinka Farms, 1 was for Rolling Hills, 1 Whacker, 1 Elna Dairy, and 1 was Desjardins Farms. 3 have paid so far for an amount of $5,000. So we're still waiting on 4. They were more towards the end of the year, so it takes a while between court counsel and lawyers and all that to get worked out. Well, testing update. Been working with coastal management. They can't fund 3 years in a row, but they may be able to allocate money to our current grant that's technically open because there was money that was turned over from other grants that wasn't used. So we're trying to get that, and I'm trying to see if we do get that, if we can move dates to get 2 testing dates prior to July. So there's a lot of different moving parts, but I'm trying to get money secured for some more free well testing. Zoning and sanitary, slower now, which is pretty normal. 2 soil inspections, 3 septic inspections, 1 permit application, and then 1 existing report. And we'll get to the hauling records down below. Questions? And I'm working on annual reports. That has them do it like the end of March. So there'll be more annual reporting with going back. I think I have it going back until like 2019. So that is what we've been doing.
How much money do we get from the coastal management grant? Yeah.
It is 30,000. And then it's a match. So we match, they give us 30,000, we match our time, Peninsula Pride gives 6,000. So yeah, it's a 1-to-1 match.
I was just wondering if there was other sources we could find to fill that void if for some reason. we
Yeah,
don't.
and that makes the test for free. So a test is $60 right now.
On a well test, can they break out parameters? I mean, we usually do a home package. Or...
Yeah, it's actually cheaper to do the home package than to do bacteria and nitrates together. So, and then it gives us more of the well update or the health of the well, which is important to see how those little like conductivity and alkalinity, how they change. Chloride's really important too. So.
On the annual reports, is that more of a summary of the year, or is there specific criteria that we're looking to list in that?
So Scott, this is the first year that Scott's having us do a new template of that. So we're working through that. I do annual reports every year for GADCAP because we get the staffing grant. So I'm mixing all of this together, and then we're actually going to be going through our 5-year review of our land and water plan in June. I wasn't scheduled until 2024, but they needed people from 24 to go to 23 because there's too many. So I figured maybe they'd be easier on us if I went a year early. So that is in June, and I'll go down to Madison and present. And that will be a 5-year review. So I'm kind of putting that into the annual plan that I'll be giving to Scott.
Aaron, can I ask you a question? I'm not sure when, and if this has to be at next meeting and you direct me on that. I keep hearing this chapter 38. I've heard it before. Can we have it? Can you brief me on it sometime a little bit? Can we talk about the hauling thing? I know I've heard it at multiple meetings and I've never really had a briefing on it.
Yeah, I think maybe what we can do is we'll have Davina send it out to the committee. We'll have the committee review it, and we can put it on next month's agenda for a discussion, and we can all look through it, give us time to refresh ourselves on it and go from there. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's nothing from our Davina. We'll move on to cooperating agencies. Barry is here with NRCS today. Barry, if you want to give us an update.
Thanks. Barry Bowles from USDA NRCS. So your district conservationist here in Kiwanee County is Jason Barrett. Jason was unable to make it today, and Aaron asked me to step in and just kind of give an update of what's going on in the county. For the past 7 years, I've worked here in this county in regards to the demonstration farms. So those were initiated in 2017 with 4 farms being selected. We actually got really good representation here at the table with Aaron Augustine with Augustine Farms and Duquette's family, along with Kinnard Farms and the Bry's up in Sturgeon Bay. So we do go across into Door County. And so the big premise in regards to the demonstration farms was brought out of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative is based on reducing sediment and nutrients into our, obviously into our Great Lakes, into the Bay or Lake Michigan here, both sides of the peninsula. From NRCS's standpoint, we've put a lot of emphasis over the last 9 years, because the Lower Fox was the first demonstration farm network, put on soil health, because we feel strongly that soil health and improving our soils is our best way of improving water quality, whether that is surface, and it also includes groundwater quality. And so one thing I wanted to let you guys know about is NDTI, which is basically a satellite imagery review. That satellite imagery is out there for years all the way back into the 90s. And that's data that our agency is now getting a hold of. And hopefully this winter, I know it's on the premise in Kiwanee County, Southern Door County and Kiwanee County is the next county that's going to be analyzed. And so that we can see the trends in soil coverage. So whether that's cover crops or whether that's, forages that are out there. Many of us that are driving around the county know that there has been a drastic increase in soil protection, soil coverage over the last few years, but to be able to put a quantitative number on it, we should be able to have that here relatively soon. I did get some numbers from the Farm Service Agency, just to get an idea of the amount of cover crops this last year planted, and this is only in Kiwanee County. It's 11,000 acres. Now that may not seem like a lot, 11,000 acres. It's way more than it used to be. The other number, or the other aspect of that number that's not included, that doesn't include all of our alfalfa, it doesn't include all of our grass, hay, doesn't include all of our winter wheat. Okay, so when we start adding all those numbers together, that is becoming, we're seeing a lot more coverage out there. A couple other things to share with you from USDA or NRCS's standpoint. We just recently, in the last week, got done evaluating applications for cost share that came in to our office. We had over $17 million worth of cost share applications within the Great Lakes region of Wisconsin, here in Northeast Wisconsin. Just think of. So those decisions are actually being made yesterday. I haven't even looked at the list yet, but we have GLRI funds that we're utilizing for that. There's also our typical EQIP funds, which is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. That funding is also added into that. So there will be a lot of projects again this year being implemented out on the landscape. Probably our number one practice is cover crops. And so between cover crops and some of the manure handling systems that we help to design and cost share, I would say those are the two biggest ones. I guess my message to this group is that, we've seen embracing soil health make a really big difference in erosion control and also in in water quality improvements on land. So think about infiltration rates. Those cover crops help roots in the ground. We're getting more water going into the soil than running off. We're also utilizing those cover crops to hold and tie up nutrients instead of being leached, which can be a really, really important aspect. And just over the last couple of years, we've seen practices that we've never, had in this county. Just the whole planting green. And for those of you that are not familiar with planting green, that's planting your next crop right into a green and growing residue, whether that's, winter rye that is 10 inches or 20 inches tall. That is a tremendous way to increase organic matter. And organic matter in the soil helps hold water, take up nutrients, and prevent erosion. So I guess that's just a little report on some of the things that have been going on within NRCS. If the board has some questions, I would be happy to entertain.
Any questions for Barry? There's the NRCS. Are they looking at, you guys are always cost sharing certain practices. Are they looking at any new practices per se that are kind of, how do you want to say it, proven or people are doing something that's new that hasn't been cost shared? What is that process of getting that on board, I guess?
Sure. So being here in Wisconsin, we sit in a 3-state region. So along with Minnesota and Michigan, we set the rates for conservation practices. So between the three states, they get together and they say, okay, this is what the rate should be to help, incentivize a producer to plant cover crops or to go to no-till or to install a grass waterway. And so there is a process there. It's also the same group where we can bring ideas for new practices forth, okay? One practice that we've been working on for the last couple of years, we're finally starting to get a little bit more traction going, is in regards to manure applications. So in the past, the common practice for applying manure was to till it into the ground, to get it off the surface. While that can be helpful for eliminating runoff, it exposes our soil surface to erosion. Okay. So there is newer technologies coming out there, what we would refer to as low disturbance manure, where we can have, think of it mostly as just a knife that goes through the ground with the manure being put below the soil surface, but not blowing up the whole soil profile. Okay. So in that way, we keep our soil health benefits that we've made, but we also don't have the risk of maybe manure on the surface. So low disturbance manure applications, you're going to hear more about that. We're starting to work with some of our folks that have, that graze animals to utilize some of our cover crops out there on the landscape. So those two practices, you've probably also heard, or maybe not, bioreactors, which are denitrifying bioreactors, where we can take tile line water, run it through a wood chip bed. Wood chips hold nitrates. Okay, and so we can reduce nitrates in tile water, and we're also looking at it from a phosphorus standpoint too. So there is some new practices out there that we're exploring and actually have some installed in this county.
Is there any other questions for me?
Theory on the MBTI imagery.
Yeah.
Brown County and the Lower Fox demonstration farms did an example of that. Can you elaborate both on, I guess, the results that they saw and also the years? I mean, this is going to be 5-10 year greater than that type of comparison.
Yeah, so Nick Peltier at Brown County Land Conservation kind of was the lead over in that county, and he stepped back all the way into the 90s to look at that satellite imagery. And what was really kind of interesting is in the 90s, we had, let's say our soil coverage was, at a certain level. As we got into the early 2000s, it dipped. There was a move towards more corn silage and less forage. However, since that time, we have 7 demonstration farms in Brown County. We were actually able to see the greening of the landscape around these farms, okay? And spread out from their farms. So they were working with their neighbors, and it was confirmation that this approach of farmers working with other farmers and passing on, positive conservation does work. And so that was one aspect that we saw from it. The other aspect that we saw from it is we looked at the county and we saw 2 areas that were really brown or red on the map where we weren't having a lot of coverage. And what we did with that is actually on the west side of the river, the county put more resources or more time just trying to get into that area. And on the east side, our 7th demonstration farm was located in that area where we were having less implementation. And so we have seen those those colors turn a little bit more green. And so I'm excited to see what the numbers for, this county and Southern Door County are going to show. And I hope that we'll have it in a couple short ones here.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Barry? All right, perfect. Thank you, Barry, for giving an update.
Thanks for your time.
We'll move on to Erica, UW Extension.
Pesticide applicator training is coming up this week locally in person on February 16th, so Thursday at the Farm Wisconsin Discovery Center at 9 a.m. and Brown County STEM Center at UWGB on Friday. Again, that's also at 9 a.m. And that's an actual training with the instructor on site. Other than that, there's test out dates for self-study or online training here in this room. So those are just test out dates scheduled for February 23rd, March 23rd, and April 6th. If anyone is interested in taking that exam, they need to call one of those offices, either Kewaunee, Brown, or Manitowoc. And the Midwest Manure Summit's coming up February 28th. That's at Lambeau Field. Website is midwestmanure.org. I have agendas here if anyone would like to look at it or register. And Manure Applicator 101 training is being held by Kevin Erb out here in the main hall on March 6th and the 14th, 12:30 to 3:30. We usually get about 80 to 100 people to attend those 2 sessions, so it's a well-attended meeting.
What are the dates on March 6th?
6th and 14th.
Travis from our office.
Travis is speaking a little bit, Sheriff's Department is speaking, and I'm doing a short presentation. For sure on the 6th, I don't know about the 14th yet, I have a conflict. We have another program which is free and online. It's called Farm Ready Research. It's a webinar series, various topics, various days of the month, or days of the week, I should say, and it goes through the middle of April. But if anyone's interested in crops and soils, dairy, beef, grazing, small ruminants, and farm management, those again are free and online, and you can just Google Farm Ready Research, UW-Madison, it should pop up. Otherwise, I have the address right here if anybody needs to copy it and take a look at what's being offered. And those are being taught by pretty much everybody at the university. And again, those topics, crops and soils, dairy, beef, grazing, small ruminants, and farm management.
How is the copper sulfate study coming along?
Got some liver samples in the lab right now, so I'm waiting to hear back from that, but I probably will we have some preliminary data available, but I'd like to get the farm management data included in the liver samples. So probably looking at, I'm getting a new knee. I'm getting a knee replacement, so I'm going to be on medical leave for a little while this spring. So hopefully I can just focus on that and put together my data while I'm working from home.
Any other questions for Erica?
but I would say June at worst.
Okay.
Probably, possibly May, depending on how long I'm out.
If seeing none, item number 7C, we're gonna skip that today because
Brian couldn't make it, so we're just moving that to March. He had a conflict, so. He'll be here in March.
comments from other state legislators, but we don't have any here today. And then other agencies or organization reports. I just want to bring up a topic that we talked about. I'm on the highway committee. When we talked about salt usage. If you see it in the news a couple weeks back, they were talking about the amount of tons of salt used on our county highways and state highways throughout the year. In Kewaunee County, or the state is actually working to move away from rock salt and start using a brine material. You'll notice the trucks running out and using the salt brine lately. What it is it's just rock salt that's dissolved in water. That's all it is. And what that does is, I have some numbers here. They were using 300 pounds per lane mile of rock salt is what the state calibrates the trucks to. So in 1 mile up and down, we're using 600 pounds of salt. So it's an astronomical number. With this salt brine that the state and the counties are moving to, in that same lane mile, we're using 80 pounds of salt in the water. So we're using a third of the salt, or how do I want to say it? We're using a third of the salt in the brine. So the state is working closely with the counties to try to move to a brine system. Not every county can do it. There's some special equipment to crush the rock salt and mix it in the water and turn it into brine. But that is the way Kewaunee County has been doing great. I think we added another truck this year and we're doing more lane miles that way. It works. Todd was saying in the majority of the snow events, I mean, if it gets really cold, we can't use it because it'll turn to ice. But in the majority of our events here in the county, he's been using that. So if we can limit the amount of rock salt we use on our county and state highways, that should help our chloride numbers in our water. So,
Yeah, so our chloride numbers do spike. When
Yeah.
we do like a winter test, they do spike quite a bit. And you can definitely determine that.
so there's a lot more counties going to it. And Kewaunee has kind of been on the leading edge, and every year we're doing more and more. So hopefully we can reduce the salt usage by 2/3 and that the state's on board, and keeps studying this. So I just wanted to give an update on that. Move on to other matters to discuss.
Aaron, would you mind what is the consistency of brine? Can you?
All it is it's just the rock salt crushed and mixed in water and diluted. Just like taking your salt from your salt shaker, putting in a cup of water, and mixing it up, and then they just spray it on the road. There is no other chemicals in this brine. A lot of people think that they're putting all this other stuff in this brine, and that's why cars are rusting out faster. It actually is just salt, but what it's doing is it's polarizing that salt. So when the salt does go on the road, it's covering the whole road surface versus a rock salt just sits there and the car has to drive over to crush it. You'll notice when the snow melts from a rock salt, it's just a circle. So the salt does get up into your cars and into your vehicles a little more when it is crushed and pulverized when it does dry to the road. But it does a lot better job of melting the snow and de-icing the roads. So it's just dissolved salt is all it is, rock salt.
Aaron, is there any other, other than salt, I've heard I don't know if they use beet juice or something, or is there do you know anything about that?
We talked about that at the county, and I think it was don't quote me on this, it was a side conversation after the meeting was over, but I believe it was a pricing issue, availability issue, and I don't know if it's a state certified
I don't know.
product to use. I've heard of that in the past, but Kewaunee County does not use it. So, and I know those are less aggressive on rust or whatever. So, but yeah. So I can bring that up to Todd again next month, and see if he has any answers. All right, we can move on to item 8.
So 2022's for the quarterly manure report, so that's quarterly, every one that, well, we have about 101 liquid manure reports, and we are at 82% for 2022. So I calculated that yesterday because I had a few come in. Sometimes they come in a little bit late past the January 30th deadline because they're still waiting for their haulers to get the bills and everything else. So yes, so we're at 82%, and that's part of the reporting. So liquid manure coming in, and I've actually been adding some of those to our GIS database to compare when the nutrient management plans come in, so that actual numbers that we're getting reported match the nutrient management plans. So I've only gotten 5 nutrient management plans in so far this year. So that's something else we've been doing in the office.
Are all CAFOs reporting that 82%? Or is there any outstanding CAFOs?
Hall's Calf Ranch did not supply their records this year. I've been emailing their CCA, but he is out of the rest.
Have they in the past?
I would have to look back at my records.
Okay. Do we have any questions on the quarterly manure reporting?
Is that a requirement?
It is not, it is voluntary.
It is voluntary.
It is a voluntary, yes. But it would be a requirement if the county passed chapter 38, which would be the manure home policy ordinance.
So CAFOs have.
No one has to.
Not even
They,
CAFOs.
well, peoples have to the DNR.
Okay.
They do not have to the county. As I said, all CAFOs except one have right now for 2020.
Yeah, on the CAFO site, Tim, we have to have our annual reports in by January 31st of 23 for all of 22 practices that we did. All our manure numbers and stuff that gets turned into the DNR. And then Nick, you would probably know more how to use that information.
Yeah, they're probably gonna track it and use it. And on a CAFO, you're required to project the amount of waste and or nutrients that you're gonna produce. And then there's an actual, right? So it's kind of like a checkbook where you got projected and then you're a reconciliation kind of process. So in March 31st, I believe is for everyone, maybe there's a few exceptions to that. The nutrient management plan is due, and that's the plan for the upcoming season. Then what Aaron was describing in the annual report, if you went in January, is basically the reconciliation of 22. Then you move to 23. So that's kind of how it's set up with the CAFO. So for CAFOs, these numbers are supposed to be being reported to the DNR and being utilized in the nutrient management plan.
So that's kind of what I've been doing on the county level with like some of the smaller guys or the manure agreements. The DNR does not get the non-CAFO plans. And there's a lot of CAFOs that have our manure agreements with smaller farms who are mainly cash grain. So they use that manure on their field. So what I've been doing in our office is making sure that all those numbers match up. So by putting them in GIS per field, I'm able to do that. So.
All right, we want to move on to the 8B, the Casco nitrates that we've been discussing over here the last year and a half.
So yeah, so the Casco nitrates, as it was reported correctly, we're at about 50.7% in October of 2022 of 73 wells were unsafe. So definitely have an issue. You know, where we want to go next is kind of up to you guys. So we did the Dragon. We have the isotope results indicating the human and animal or human and or animal waste, so mammalian waste. I did pull the manure gallons per year in those sections. So it dramatically went down. So in 2020 it was like 3.5 million, 2021, 5.8. And then 2022, it did go down to 1.4 million in those two sections. And all of this was in compliance with nutrient management and rates and in their nutrient management plans. So I would hope if we get the Casco, or if we get the coastal management money, we can again target Casco to see how this is changing and work with the farms to see if they will continue to maybe not spread any manure in those areas, because I mean, we do have the isotope results. We can work with Borchardt lab, which is Aaron and Tucker now. You know, they can do the confirmation of bovine, human, and I think they can even break it down to beef and horse. So that is a possibility, and I don't have it printed with me, but I just got some rates costs on that. We could go with Dragon and do, you know, they've said they could do monitoring wells with nitrate real-time data. We don't have the full estimate on that, which has probably changed because we needed GHGs. We could do monthly testing with UW Stevens Point, but that is monthly testing and doesn't really do anything up front for Casco. So it kind of depends on where we want to go, how we want to address this. I definitely think we should work with the local farms in the area for sure. And I guess it all depends on what the committee's thoughts are and funding options and that. So, but I've been looking into, you know, at least what some of our options are for testing.
I will start out if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
At the village level in the town of Casco, the area that I represent, I'm not just thinking in a small thing here, I'm thinking big, but right now that's where we've sort of had our time and our efforts put into it. Sat through a fair amount of village board meetings also and had a lot of the residents coming in that have some serious concerns, and I understand that 100%. I'm one of them that my well has been no good now for quite some time. I accept that. I will take care of that myself, but some of those folks are not able to. They're stressed. They're concerned about their little kids that they're trying to raise. A lot of those folks did move to the village of Casco because they wanted to get away from Green Bay and get away from everywhere else. It's a safe place. So I understand all of that. They did spend a lot of money on their homes. Some of them maybe more than they were comfortable doing, but they did. So they're a little bit strapped for finances. So their question keeps coming up. What are we going to do? We've talked, we've tested, we've tried to do everything that we were asked to do. What's the action plan? What can we do? What is Land and Water? What is public health? What is Kewaunee County in general going to do to help us? And I can't give them that answer. So I'm hoping today, at least we can get some ideas of an action plan.
I mean, an action plan. I can't make farmers not go above and beyond their state statutes unless it's voluntary. I can't go out there and say, you cannot use this field for manure or fertilizer. I don't have that authority. So that's where I know a lot of people are getting upset with our office, but I can't enforce regulations that are stricter than the state standard or county standard. I don't have that authority. So, you know, we're trying to work with the farms voluntarily. Tim, I hope that you can have another conversations with them for this upcoming 2023 year. And I know a lot of people are not happy with that answer, but my hands are tied. I can't put stricter standards on certain farms or fields. So I don't know what to do moving forward. And I mean, I'll say that I don't know. You know, we got the stricter standards for the Silurian because we knew that bacteria and E. coli were a major problem. We tried to get nitrate standards and they were shut down in Madison. So I don't know what an
I know
action plan is.
The village even brought this up at their board meeting. We said, are we able to, years and years ago, I sat through Smart Growth. I don't know if anybody else did that
Mhm.
15 years ago when I was on the village board. We sat in Smart Growth. And part of Smart Growth was being able to control certain things around your territory. And one of the things the village of Casco was concerned about 15 years ago was we have a sewer system, but we have a lot of little subdivisions that were popping up around us and dropping in conventional mound systems or sewer systems, septic systems. So we had, and I didn't look into it anymore, and I don't know if there's any teeth in it, we had the authority to stop, like put a bubble around our 1 mile area around the village of Casco and say, you're not allowed to put a subdivision. Are we allowed to say you're not allowed to put liquid manure on the field that's 100 feet away? Do we have that authority? That's where the village has got to.
We do not. We do not have that authority. They have setbacks that are in state standards, but again, we do not have that authority unless we were, and we can't as a county do an ordinance because it's stricter than state standard. So what we would have to do is we would have to have an ordinance passed by county board. Then that would have to go on a referendum, just like the public health ordinance did. But yes, as a county or as an office, we cannot say within 2 miles, you can't spread manure. We can ask voluntarily, and that's what we've been doing. And that's why our number is way down from 2021, you know, because we just really got into this problem in 2022 when the new subdivision really went in. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, I'm getting some phone calls that aren't very nice too, but I don't have the regulatory authority, so it's really hard.
And let me start by saying,
Dick, I'm sorry, I can't.
No, go ahead.
Kennard Farms have been super. We sat with Lee, Pagels, those are the two that are sitting right by us, and they're well aware of what we're going through, and they have been super good about it.
Mhm.
So yes, we will have that conversation again, and just, I'll share that with JJ and with Lee, and just say, guys, we've still got something going on here. We're not sure what
And I
it
can
is.
sit in those meetings too with the actual, you know,
You know,
percentages
and
and stuff.
they have been really good about it. So I'm not bashing them by any means. They'll never think that's happening.
Well, and the thing that I've been having some of the other people that are way smarter with geology is in the state of Wisconsin is, you know, a lot of them like, as those houses are going in, I'm wondering if it's opening up fractures. So if it's opening up fractures, we don't know how far that manure is, or that nitrates are moving. So it's just this, you know, because as more houses go in, the daycare gets better. And now the daycare is under 2 or has been under 2 for a while now. So, you know, and I don't know if a goal is for the village to work on grants to get public water. You know, is the village of Casco going to continue to grow a lot more? That might be on the horizon as a long-term, but.
And we're just, as we can see from the village of Casco, it's not the whole village of Casco. We keep saying it's the whole village of Casco. It
Right,
certainly
the
is
northern,
That one
well, I
is.
mean, the nitrates are in that 2 to 5 range south of
Yep.
the river, but yes, the northern part, not just the new subdivision, but up and along all of the highway and then.
So
No.
things that, I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say things we threw out at the village board meeting, and they may be harebrained ideas, but, you know, we talked about, can we punch out a well in one of those 2 empty lots that's right in the middle of that subdivision? They're really having a tough time. And we put a well in there, we let that well run 24 hours a day, we stick it into our storm sewer, and let it go and flush the water. I know I've said that before and everybody thinks that's crazy, but
Well, and I mean, that's one of Dragon with the monitoring wells. So, I mean, we could flush it. I don't know how the aquifer, how much water is moving through that sand and gravel lens. We could test for real-time data with the nitrates. That would be good information because then we can say, okay, we're having a spike now, what's happening on the landscape. So, I mean, that's one,
That was kind of my thought, Tim, is, I don't want to say it's the simplest solution, but I think it's the quickest way to get some real-time monitoring, flush the system. I mean, we see what happened with the daycare when those houses went into the
Yeah.
north, their numbers went down. So if we get on that northwest corner of that subdivision, can we cut this problem off possibly?
well, and Barry was just talking about wood chips. I mean, that kind of sparked something. So it's like, you know, potentially doing something on that edge of the field, possibly. But I mean, the village owns the 2 lots that are right, it's smack dab next to the highest nitrate contamination. So,
And I drove through yesterday just to see where everybody in that, this middle bowl area of that subdivision, everything sort of comes through. Sounds silly, but I looked at where their wells, were, where they're
Yeah.
placed.
well, it does, it's a little depression area because the northwestmost parcel that the village owns.
Yep.
If you look back on air photos,
Yep.
it's continually wet.
It is.
And there's wet spots going through the north fields where that could be a little closed depression going into a fracture. We just don't know the geology that's, you know, we know bedrock's 20 to 22 plus feet, but you know, how quickly it's going through that sand and gravel
Right.
lens and then hitting the bedrock.
Groundwater's close there. They're digging for another hole
Right.
yesterday, and I went to look where they were tying into our
Yeah.
lateral that comes in. And I mean, the water is pouring in at 10 feet.
Over
So, I mean, we could look into Dragon potentially, but we do, you know, is the village of Casco willing to put in any money? That's a potential.
If we come up with some ideas and yep. And once again, the folks are just looking for an action plan. Let's try to do something. Let's, we want to keep testing. I'm not
Mhm.
doubting that, but let's try to do something. Let's talk to the farmers. Let's see if we can work with them and say, please don't spread here. And we keep saying liquid mineral. We don't know that 100%. It could be some of the artificial stuff that's going on. So those are all things we still have to.
I like the idea of the real-time testing, like Nina said that Reagan offered with that monitoring well or what it may be, because we can kind of correlate it back to what's going on or the time of the season.
Right.
As far as punching a well, they're $10,000. I don't even know what a well costs.
But they don't have to
nowadays.
case all the way down, so that's,
I think we should do the same as what everybody else is doing
All right,
there.
same
Don't
with
you
that.
think? So we're.
yeah, the
doing what
casing
everybody
at,
else is,
I think they're all
160.
cased at like 41-ish.
So we're getting.
Um,
numbers.
I can shoot an email to Dragon today with this information and see if they can come up with a cost estimate and how and if they can do nitrate real test
I was just gonna say,
dating.
is that actually
I don't know, but
computer that
I
sits on
mean,
there and does this, or is it pull samples, take the lab?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that we've used strips in the past for like the fair. That was, you know, you put water, you know, it's not 100% accurate, but you know, even if it's, I'll touch base with Dragon today. I will shoot an email. I will copy in the committee and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's the, you know, that's gonna give us possibility to, but also, you know, we can do, if you guys want to confirm what is actually in the wells, we could do some of the Tucker and Aaron old Workhart labs, so. I'll send that email around to you guys.
And we're not talking about wasting a well. Our idea we threw out there was let's punch the well in and run this. And if that lot ever gets sold and our water cleans up around there, that well gets sold to the, as we sell the lot. So we can recoup some of that money also.
Right. So,
That was just an idea. Maybe there's a
Mhm.
lot of other things out there.
One of the things on the punching the well and trying to flush.
Yes.
I believe, if memory serves me right, Mrs. Kushar, when she came in with some of the child care center issues, that one of the recommendations from the DNR was to utilize the water and see if that could flush through. So I don't know that we're off base in terms of this flush theory. If you Google some of the irrigation or nitrates in irrigation water, I looked at a few sites. I didn't play with a lot of numbers. If a well test is at like between 10 and 20 part per million, I believe it ends up being very little nitrate that would go, but it is available nitrate that could go to a crop, whether that's a lawn crop or a corn crop. Obviously, as that value increases, then there's more and more nitrate in there. But there are articles out there by universities that give equations in which you could try to put that, part per million in a well test to pounds per acre given to, whether it be a lawn, if it was a residential lot, or if it was a bigger lot, a well, like you're saying, that's going out onto an ag field. There could be a calculation to see based on what the well test is to what that nitrate is contributing to a given crop. So there, with the nitrate in there, why just run it downstream? Might as well utilize it to a crop if that opportunity exists.
And when we're drilling this well, obviously irrigation well is different than
Right.
what I'm talking
It's a
about.
high
So can we
capacity.
at least talk about that so we're not wasting the water? Maybe talk to Kennards and be able to use it on their field and back.
Well, I'll email Dragon today and just get the monitoring well cost estimate in. And then, you can have conversations with the farms. If you want me there, just let me know. I can work on my schedule. And then I will send the Tucker, the different options he had. I'll send that out to the
Just so everybody knows about Lisa, we had this at the daycare. We had this discussion at the village board meeting. Even though her water test now has been over a year within compliance, DOJ has sort of let it go, I think, the way she explained it to me, but she's still in violation of the DNR.
Yes.
They will not wipe her slate clean
No.
and start over again because she had that. They're still, I should say on her, they are on her. It makes absolutely no sense what she's going through. Her water tests are good, better, not good, but better.
And then I will put it on next month's agenda, possibly as an action item.
Yes, I think if we can come up with some action plans, we could possibly move forward on something.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, and then we'll have our March meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna have to change, move on scheduling March meeting. We're gonna have to change the date that, conflict for IU. We haven't set for the 7th. I'm gonna be out of town.
You said the 9th or 10th would work? I'm on vacation the 13th through 17th, so the 9th, the 10th, 13th, or 9th, 10th, 20th.
Not work for me that following, the third Tuesday of the month, so.
But we do need to have a meeting because Brian Menke needs to come here for the claim.
So with the 9th, that Thursday work, if we do a Thursday morning, 8:15? Right, if we keep it the same week then, and
That works for me.
works for me, Nick and Tim, does it work for you guys? Okay, so we'll move it to March 9th then to 8:15.
And we usually do 2 months out in advance, so then it would be April 11th.
Davina, if we can start thinking, we had talked
Correct.
about maybe a nighttime meeting.
Quarterly, I think.
Just to help, but people did seem to have interest in
Mhm.
wanting to come and listen. They were a
So
little concerned.
maybe April, could we do a night meeting?
I would say that April would be a little easier. Because once May comes around, a lot of people start getting busy. in the morning.
Yeah, so Wednesdays are the day that works best for me after. Wednesdays are pretty open for me.
So are we looking like April 12th?
April 12th,
Nick, is that, Eric, would that work for you?
and what time would work? Do we do 6 o'clock so people can get home?
Back from work.
Yeah, I would do 6 PM. I think we did 5 PM last month because Kevin was.
Because
presenting.
Kevin was presenting at
But if we
6.
move it back to 6 people.
So let's do April 12th, which is Wednesday. And that's gonna be a 6 PM start time. And that'll give people enough time to get home from work and get to Luxembourg.
There might be an event going on out here on the 12th. I think it's actually the 13th, but you know, probably want to double check that.
Yep,
Otherwise, you can have it in here, I guess.
it'll be in here,
Did-
yeah.
Did it fit in here last time? I wasn't able to make
It was
it.
Well,
we were out
more
there.
people came too because of the well testing, so
Last year.
we'll just see how it works. So this will be our first official night meeting without having the meeting afterwards.
All right, we'll move on to chairman's wrap up. I don't have a whole lot today other than Peninsula Pride is having their annual meeting. Nick, is that a free meeting to attend?
It is open to the
It's
public.
open to the public, so if you guys want to stay for the meeting, that'd be great, so. With that, I'll need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Nick,
Second.
second by Tim, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. 9:19.